I'm not able to post. This episode of the Off-Road Podcast is sponsored by Warren, Colby Valve, and 4Patriots.
Off-Road Podcast, episode 435, Blue Ribbon Coalition.
Tonight, Aaron takes a dip, Coy gets muddy, and Ben gets fancy.
Welcome to the Off-Road Podcast, a podcast about everything off-road. We cover the news, review products, and interview people in the off-road industry. Your hosts tonight are Aaron, Coy, and my name is Ben. And tonight we are joined by Simone Griffin from the Blue Ribbon Coalition. And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
I just had a Dr. Pepper explode on me during the countdown, and I'm looking for somebody to blame. But I'm the only one in this room. It's everywhere.
On your kids.
yes, those kids.
I absolutely would if there's any way for me to. If I wasn't in a locked room. Aaron, why don't we start with you? I know you were doing something cool this week.
Yeah, so I ran away from my family right after Thanksgiving dinner, and
Hashtag
got my
goals.
hashtag goals. Packed up my wife's truck and boogied down to Nevada, and I spent 3 days, 2 nights down in the northwest corner of Nevada at the Bog Hot Springs. It's probably like the 6th or 7th time I've been there. It's an amazing place. I love it down there. I got some pictures. Let me see here. Here we go. Start off. This is just the mountains in the background. Lots of snow up in the mountains, but down, I should say down in the valley where we were. Down in the valley, still like 4,500 feet of elevation, so almost a mile up. Here's our camp. You can see off to the left of the Ford pickup that has a trailer behind it. You can see it's all frosty. The creek is just in front of that frost line. And I spent a lot of time in the hot springs. So as soon as we got there, my goal was to get camp set up just enough so that I could change into my swim trunks and get in the creek. And then slept all night. First thing I did when I got up in the morning, put my swim trunks on and ran and jumped in the creek. And then later that night was in the creek. Then the next morning is in the creek. It's so much fun. The water was probably like 104 degrees at the spot we were camped at. At night, all the steam coming off or water vapor, whatever it is, would go into the bushes behind it. You can see here on this picture, all the bushes have ice crystals formed all over them. Here's a picture of the dog looking out the camper window. That's me floating in the creek one of the mornings. Here's nighttime. We're out there with our headlamps on, digging around in the dirt, picking up stuff that we were throwing in the water. It got really cold while we were there the first night. So this is the Gazelle tent I stayed in. So I tent camped while I was there. It was 10 degrees the first night, and it was 8 degrees the second night. So it got pretty cold. There's icicles hanging off of my tent. I've never had icicles on my tent before, so that was kind of cool. There's Aaron's ham radio. He was doing some nerdy stuff. We went and visited a homestead that Coy has been to this one. Ben, I don't think you've been to this homestead.
I was on that same trip, right? With you and Coy?
Yep. Ben was there.
Yeah. At this...
Yeah.
But this wasn't on. I don't think this was on that trip though. Maybe it was.
Yeah, this was on the trip. This was on the trip that Ben and I were on.
Okay. The one where you parked right on. You park right on the highway and then you walk like a quarter mile around a rock.
No, that's not this one, right?
That is this one.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I don't.
Then Ben wasn't
I don't
on
think
this one.
Ben's been to. I don't think Ben's been to this one, but I'm pretty sure Coy's been to this one. It's just a really cool old homestead. It's got to be over 100 years old, but it still has modern stick frame lumber in it. In the picture, you can see this corral, and it's like all woven willow tree branches to make the fences. And behind it's a box canyon. We hiked back to the box canyon. And in this picture, you see me pointing across, and there's a person on the other side. And that was my buddy Bryce was on the other side. And we were hollering at him because we saw something shiny. And he bent down, and it turned out to be a piece of obsidian the size of the one I'm holding here in my hand. And there was a huge patch of obsidian on the ground there that someone was napping the obsidian, and they were making arrowheads out of the obsidian in that spot. And who knows how long ago they were doing that, but these pieces look like reject pieces of arrowheads, and you can just see that someone had been working on them. So got a couple fun little artifacts from that trip. That was pretty neat. Here they are in my hand. You can see some of the other napped stuff behind it.
Yeah, but you put those
Also,
exactly where you found them, right?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes,
Good.
for other people to find. One thing that was disappointing, I'm going to go off of just a quick rant here, is I found 2 balloons out there. One was a Mylar balloon, one was a latex balloon. This balloon right here has a phone number on it and a website address. And this balloon, I'm pretty sure, came from Puyallup, Washington. And so I don't know if it floated through the air all the way to Nevada, or if someone just had it with them and they popped it out in this random field that I happened to come across. But I picked up both of them out of the trash. I picked them both up and I threw them in the trash. But I just hate balloons because people let them go in the air and then they just land somewhere. They pop, animals eat them. They just make it. I don't know. I hate balloons.
When I was a kid, they always said whales swallowed them and died, but apparently that's straws, not balloons.
Well, maybe they've moved on to straws. Maybe they've evolved to only swallow straws. So it was an amazing trip. I had a great time. The guys I went with had never seen homesteads like that before. And they're like, we need to do this again. And so before the show, I was already planning a route for going back there over 4th of July weekend. So I'm looking forward to going back. Ben, what have you been doing? You say you're getting fancy?
I haven't been doing anything really. I put the heater, my diesel heater up here in the garage with it poking out the bottom of the garage door. And then I took the wife to the Nutcracker and I had to dress up. So I was like, should I get my fancy overalls? Should I put on my straw hat? Like I felt really out of place. It was fun though.
You probably looked out of place too.
Oh yeah, he's 6'4" bearded guy walking around in a room with a bunch of people in like suits and dresses. I was like, I have a button-on shirt and jeans on. Do not fit in at all.
How many times did they try to usher you backstage because they assumed you were part of the event? You know,
Absolutely none. I was on
one of the characters.
I was on the
I
upper
thought he
deck.
was like a roadie. You know,
Oh, the help. He's like the help. Yeah, the roadie.
he's clearly somebody lifting things.
What about you, Coy?
I didn't do a lot, you know, did the regular Thanksgiving stuff, got angry about all the Black Friday sales being not sales as far as I could tell. And then I went up to Green Peter Reservoir. It's fairly local to me. There's been some kind of legislation that went in for salmon spawning. They have to drain these reservoirs extremely low for the winter. And I mean, they always have a fall/winter drawdown, but there's usually still kind of a lake there, and it's essentially a creek at this point. And it looks really cool. And then if you feel like getting muddy, you can start hiking around out there. It's super slippery, and there's a lot of steep grades, but sometimes you can find fishing lures and, you know, cool stuff that people drop out of their boats, beer bottles. We found an entire, like a Coleman 10x10 pop-up that looked like somehow just went to the bottom of the lake at some point.
Fell off of someone's boat.
I'm assuming there was some kind of redneck yacht club situation going on because it was back in one of the, you know, fingers of the reservoir where everybody would go back, and somehow this whole because at first I was like, this thing looks almost like it was fine, and then I went and looked at it closer, and yeah, but yes, it did kill thousands of fish, but they were planted fish for the most part, and then all the all the all that water, if you see the color of it, looks like a mining sediment pond. They drained it.
Yeah.
That all just got drained down into the Santiam rivers, and I'm sure it's just trashing wildlife down there. But super cool to go check that out when it's that low. Like, I mean, you can kind of see the water on that picture. You can see the water. Go back to that. But you can see, I mean, that water is like 15 feet from the top in the summertime, and it is basically nothing at the bottom right now.
Oh, so it's typically full.
Yeah, well, I mean, so they do drain it in the winter, just not to this extent. They have to let water out. I guess not everybody has dams where they live, but so in the fall or even late summer, they start dropping the water level. And then throughout the winter, to control flooding, they'll catch that water and fill it back up. So there is a constant up and down with this, but the level that it's at right now is that's like working when this is what, like, where they have it when they have to do maintenance on the dam or something. Like, it's crazy low.
Yeah, I think we just didn't get a lot of the rain that they were anticipating.
No, this is solely for salmon spawning. Apparently, when the salmon come up there, now that there's the reservoir there that's been there, I don't know when this thing got built, in the 40s or something. They can't find the creeks that they got to go up because they've raised the water level, so the fish can't like tell where the creeks are at. Theoretically, they fill these reservoirs with kokanee, which is basically landlocked salmon. Which when they do this, it absolutely kills like a large percentage of them. So it's kind of, I'm not even going to get into the fish part of it. I'm not a fisherman, really. That's a whole nother political issue. That's not
I mean,
my thing to fight.
we see dam issues all the time due to fish, and so I mean that's something that we work on. So I'm curious to learn more about that at some point.
I don't know a ton about it. I like to go play up around the reservoirs. I do
How warm was the water compared to the hot springs that I invited you to come on that trip with me?
So probably pretty cold. I only touched the water coming out of the creek because to actually get down to the bottom of that reservoir, I don't know if I could have got back out. It's just so muddy and slippery and steep. Like, that would have been a nightmare.
Yeah. I bought some Dr. Pepper for my trip, just in case, like, a last minute, you might come in the last minute, but you didn't pull through.
You know, when you called me and said that you got stuck and I had to come rescue you, that was perfect. But when I shouted out, Aaron's going to cover my fuel, all you'd had to do is agree to that. It would have been done deal. So I could have been there.
Agree to it, but never pay.
Well, you know, we'd have to work that out later. I'd have to get some side money to give to you that then you gave to me in front of my wife, you know, make it a show.
I told you to just ride along with me and we'd split the gas. It'd make it that much cheaper. And then we took the F-150. I got 17.3 miles a gallon on that thing.
I mean, that's great, but I'd also have to have a place to stay when I got back from a holiday weekend that I bailed on.
You bailed on your family. Yeah. You got tents, you got trailers, sure you probably even have a doghouse out there.
I actually didn't think of this till after I hiked in there. I left my gold pan in the truck. But Ben, if you pop that picture up of that culvert that's dropping into the reservoir.
Yeah.
So there's gold up in that area. It's kind of in the Quartzville, Yellow Bottom area. And I was like, after I got down there, I'm like, that culvert drops into this reservoir. Normally that's not a waterfall. There's water up to that culvert. If I just go in there and get some sand, there's got to be some gold in there. So I might actually go back, I don't know, next weekend or in a couple weeks. Try.
What are they called? Is it the honey hole or something like that?
Yeah, I don't watch Gold Rush, but that sounds like something I've heard them scream on the commercials.
How about you, Simone? Have you done anything in the off-road world the past week or two?
Unfortunately, nothing on the ground, but just a lot of plans that we're seeing across the Western United States that I've been working on, Idaho, Montana. So that's what I spent my weekend doing, even Moab stuff. So nothing on the ground. Didn't get to get outside and go out and hit the trails at all, unfortunately. But just lots of reading documents.
Oh, so fun.
I surprisingly enjoy it, but
All
most
right.
people would not.
This Week in Review was brought to you by 4 Patriots. Have you ever been concerned with the shelf life of the food you take camping? Since you're a listener of the podcast, we know you at least keep some emergency food stashed in your rig. 4 Patriots sells a variety of survival food and equipment that pair great with the off-road and adventure lifestyle. 4 Patriots set up a special page for you at 4patriots.com/FRN so that listeners of the Off-Road Podcast can see this week's discounts and deals before they go away.
We got some listener feedback, and it's actually one of the few stories that we did not share, or Christmas list that we did not share last week on our Christmas list episode. And it goes, so my off-roadish Christmas wish list for 2023 is under 25 tire gauges, hitch pins, because I can never find enough of them. You know how that goes. I lose them all the time too. Under $100, some soft shackles, because you can't have enough rigging to spread around. And then under 500 is another trauma/medical kit. Under 1,000, some new wood pew-pews, SIG P320 times 10 millimeter, or the 44 meg revolver. And the last one here was in the unlimited category, which is to build a dream shop. And that's from Robert in North Idaho.
Yeah, Robert, sorry. Somehow your email got, it slipped through some cracks. And so we didn't get to read this one on our last episode. So if you reach out, maybe we'll send you some patches and a sticker as a consolation prize, because you didn't get to be in the drawing. So
Robert, I really love the way you actually like listened to the show apparently and had your own categories. Like most people were just like, hey, I want a new locking rear differential. You like nailed it. So good job, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
We also want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Patch. Head over to patriotpatch.co and check out their selection of great patches, shirts, cleaning mats, signs, and stickers. You can also join the Patch of the Month Club for $15 and receive a patch, matching sticker, and artist proof each month.
And then the new Patch of the Month just got announced today. And he knows.
That's like Viking Santa. He's even got blood on that axe there. That's pretty wild.
I'm thinking of what's his name? Clampus or something like that. It's the Norwegian Santa that comes to your house and beats you if you're bad or something like that.
Oh, I have to read that story. Maybe we need to read that to our children.
Yes, it's a good idea.
I think you're talking about Krampus, right?
Yeah, there we go.
They made a horror movie about it where like an evil Santa comes in and just destroys everybody.
Yeah. Then
they've got some new patches that they just released that are with the Christmas spirit also. They got a overlanded Tacoma with a tree on the top. Actually, Ben, can you scroll through the rest of those? And I'm going to upload another photo here.
Yep. And then we've got the you'll shoot your eye out with some gingerbread men, because Gingy got his eye shot out. And then a tacked out Christmas present 9mm MP5 magazine AR style rifle.
Yeah, they got some fun stuff there. Sorry, it's taking a little longer to upload this, but as we came back from our trip, we saw quite a few people with Christmas trees on their rigs, and
I totally avoided going to the mountains this weekend because of the amount of people that go out right after Thanksgiving and just make it an absolute horrible time up there. But I don't know if there's much snow up there right now anyways.
So here's a picture of a Tacoma that I saw going down a mountain pass, and he actually has 3 Christmas trees on there. on the top of this truck. I saw 2 different rigs with 3 Christmas trees each, which was pretty funny. So that's very fitting that we have that Overlander patch.
I'm practically the
I don't
same.
know who goes up and like gets the Christmas trees, but then gets like multiples. Like I haven't been that excited about anything since I was a child.
I've never seen good enough trees up in the wilderness that I'd want to have in my house to celebrate Christmas with either. They're usually so scraggly.
But I mean, it's in your house. There's needles everywhere. It's like an insane fire hazard, and then you got to get rid of it. And then I got to drive 90 miles, pay for a permit, cut this thing, get sap all over me, strap it to the top of my truck. This just does not sound like a good time.
You clearly have no Christmas spirit, Coy.
Yeah, bah humbug, Coy.
I'm grumpy today, I guess. I don't know.
Have tire troubles ever left you deflated? Colby Valve has got you covered. Ever have a valve stem leak? Colby Valve makes reusable and easily replaceable valve stems that don't require you to remove your tire from the wheel. They work with your off-road rig, ATV, side-by-side, commuter vehicle, or even your tractor. Never be left stranded again because of a busted valve stem. They also have a tire repair kit for those punctures that keep you away from doing your favorite thing, wheeling. Make sure to check out colbyvalve.com or ask for them at your local off-road products store.
All right, our first news story is brought to us by the website Opposite Lock, and the headline is one of the most epic Baja stories ever. So there's a bloke from Australia named Wouter Jan van Dijk, and he's a motocross endurance rider. And he made a very late decision to race the Baja 1000 this year. He had no sponsor involvement, no team, no crew, just this wild hair that he was going to go run the Baja 1000. So a lot of times when you run the Baja 1000, you've got a co-rider. You don't usually do the whole thing yourself. You do a section of the course, then you hand the bike off to somebody else does another section. He did all 1,300 miles on his own. Also, most competitors get there early enough that they can pre-run the course at least once, if not multiple times. And he just showed up to the start line essentially, and they gave him his route instructions. He didn't even have a GPS, so he just went for it. He flew to San Diego, bought a bike in California off of Craigslist. Word on the street is a 2015 KTM, so it's an 8-year-old bike. He hand drew numbers on it, and he bought a small tent and some camping gear. He rode down to the southern tip of the Baja and started the race. The only gear he carried is what he brought down with him. The bad news was that his subframe cracked on the drive to the start line, and he also wore out his tires. He was told that he needed to find additional safety gear, fix his frame, and get new tires. But he got it all done with the off-road community that was down there, and he got his bike fixed. And at 1:32 a.m., he started the Baja 1000. He started really strong. At one point, he was even leading his class. And like I said, he has no GPS. He just stopped at camps along the way to figure out where he was, which is pretty crazy. And this article says, as day turned to night, his story started to spread through the peninsula. He would roll into teams' pits areas, having no idea where they were, and the pit crews would feed him and help him out however they could, which on one occasion was pulling cactus needles out of his arms. His story had gone viral, and thousands of people were watching his GPS track dot blip its way through the course. Finally, after 48 hours of starting, after 48 hours, he crossed the finish line into Ensenada, achieving something that many of the more prepared competitors couldn't, and became an instant Baja legend. So what an awesome story.
Awesome, but stupid. I want to say it's stupid. Yes, he's an enduro rider, so that gives him an edge. But I worry that this. I think Coy and stated this last week, or one of us, that this could lead other people to do the same thing, think they could do the same thing, and potentially put themselves at risk.
Like some copycatters.
Copycatters. It sounds really cool. Don't get me wrong. I would love to just roll down
I think it's awesome.
and full send it. But at the same time, I'm just like,
Are you ready for Boomer Coy's take on this?
Yeah, let's hear it, Boomer Coy.
I am not going to take away from this guy's skill or achievement. Like, just the fact he did this with zero of his own support. Like, he's clearly an amazing writer, so I don't want to take from that. And this was legendary. But this could have went wrong absolutely so many ways, and he's literally just relying on the charity of other people's pits, of who paid their own money or got like you're using other people's resources, which I know that they're giving it to him, I guess. But it's cool. It's a legend. This happened in this one time. But if next year 5 guys do this, don't you think every pit crew is going to be like, absolute, this can't, they got to do a rule change. And if this guy had broke his back halfway or blew up his bike, was he going to walk back from Mexico to New Zealand? Like, what was his plan? Like, it just seems it worked out good, which is fine. But it's like when I was a kid, a friend of mine's dad got bit by a mule, and he turned around and punched it so hard it knocked the mule over. Instant legend. Like, he punched a horse out. That's awesome. But if the mule had stomped him to death in front of him, his kid, and me, like, we'd all been like, oh, well, that's what happens when you assault a mule. Like, it does. If he had just broken his spine halfway through and had zero support and died out there, we'd all been like, oh, well, guess you shouldn't do that. Like, and it just feels like maybe there should be some rules against doing this with zero support. But I'm not a Baja guy. Maybe this is like the kind of thing they love. I don't know. It just seems epically stupid, and also wildly reminds me, if any of you guys have ever watched the movie The Last Indian. We're talking about Indian motorcycles, not the other Indians. It's a wildly similar story, but a dude from New Zealand goes to the Bonazel salt flats with an Indian motorcycle, and it's almost the exact same story, aside from that. So that's my take. Obviously, the guy's an amazing writer, though, and did an excellent job. Bah humbug.
All right, moving on.
No, I'll get a ton of hate mail because, as far as I can tell from the internet, I'm absolutely the only person that thought that. But everybody else thinks he's amazing, which I'm sure he is. This next article comes from Jalopnik. GMC put a 6-month ownership requirement in the warranty for the 2024 Canyon AT4X. So flipping is when you buy a really popular, desirable car just to resell it for more money than you bought it for. And it is something that all automakers fight. And sometimes, like say the Ford GT, I mean, you actually had to sign that you wouldn't sell it for like 2 years or something. Like famously, John Cena got in a huge lawsuit with Ford over selling his too soon. So GM and a couple other automakers trying to fight against the flipping. GMC has put language into the warranty of the Canyon AT4X that will void certain parts of the truck's warranty if buyer flips it. It requires a 6-month ownership period for both the Canyon AT4X and the AT4X AEV edition, which we know are both high-priced off-road versions of the Canyon. And if a buyer gets greedy and flips it before those 6 months, they'll find that these parts of the truck's warranty are voided. The bumper-to-bumper warranty, the powertrain warranty, the sheet metal warranty, tire coverage, and accessory coverage. General Motors has placed similar ownership requirements on other high-demand enthusiast vehicles, such as the 23 and 24 Corvette Z06, the 24 Corvette E-Ray, the 23 and 24 GMC Hummer EV, and the 23 and 24 Cadillac Escalade V. General Motors previously installed an ownership requirement of 12 months, but later reduced the requirement to 6 months. Additionally, some Chevy owners were offered 500,000 My Chevy reward points and a $5,000 value for retaining ownership of their new vehicle for the duration of the required ownership period.
Yeah. I hate it when people do this because it just adds an extra cost for these already expensive rigs. So people who've got cash or can get in line soon enough, they buy them up and then they resell them. I mean, they do the same thing with video game consoles too. Like when the newest video game console comes out, people who can stay up all night because they can take a day off of work or whatever, they go buy one and they resell them for twice as much money on the marketplace.
This is that weird Venn diagram where Taylor Swift fans and high performance automotive enthusiasts are in the same area there.
Yes. Yes.
I just like to go see a Taylor Swift concert if I could get a ticket for under $7,000 because I'm getting scalped. And this guy's like, I just like to buy a Hummer EV at market or at list price instead of market price.
Yeah, Coy's real butthurt about his Taylor Swift tickets not being able to go to the show.
I'm sorry you couldn't go see T Swift, Coy. Really sorry.
I'm just gonna shake it off. I don't know what else to do.
That was good.
that was solid. Very solid. It's funny because I was like, when we posted this article in the notes, all I could think of was back during COVID, seeing Toyota 4Runners and Tacomas being like resold for $64,000 when they're like a $42,000 or $45,000 truck, somewhere in that number. And they're like, oh no, here, let's add 10 grand onto it because that's market value and I'm reselling it to you. I'm doing you a favor. Not
supply and demand. I mean, it's capitalism, and it's up to the automakers to fight it if they want to. I don't like it, but I have to be okay with it if I'm going to be okay with capitalism. So
I don't have to be okay with it. I still think they're douche canoes.
Go prepared with Warren Industries. They produced the first recreational winch in 1959 and lead the industry with their dedication to quality and reliability. When you dig yourself in deep, make sure you have the right tools to get yourself out. Get Warren equipped and go where others can't. Now, let's get ready for adventure and head into our main topic.
Tonight, we are joined by Simone Griffin, the policy director for Blue Ribbon Coalition. So welcome to the show, Simone.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you on. Let's start off with the Fast 5 facts. New or old vehicle?
Old.
Summer, winter camping?
Summer.
Rock, sand, snow, or mud?
Sand for sure.
Favorite vehicle brand?
Ford.
Favorite tire?
Whichever tire is going to sponsor BRC.
And
Business owner, that's going to be my favorite tire. That should be my favorite make of car too, I guess.
And any recommendations for someone new to off-roading?
My recommendation is start with finding a good camping spot. Go camping first. I think that's the best way to start. And then go from there. Join BRC. We'll show you and tell you good places that people don't go to too. So that helps.
Well, you're giving out camping secrets on the internet?
I know I'm going to get canceled. So we actually have the Dispersed Camping Access Alliance, and we'll send out save these coordinates. It's typically coordinates that are really good camping spots that are at risk of being closed too. So we want people to go camp there and use these areas so that they don't
for
get
lack
closed.
of use.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Or that's what they claim, at least, lack of use.
Certainly. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
See, in Oregon, it's not lack of use. Everybody camps here. It's because somebody built a meth lab there, usually, or something like that. I also have to ask, you said summer camping's your favorite and you're in Utah. Last time I was in Utah in the summer, it was 107. Like, that's not an exaggeration. I'm stating it was 107 degrees.
Yeah.
And I saw people camping and I just I don't know. I know that it's a dry heat, which felt exactly the same as a not dry heat, but
I should have clarified. I like summer camping if I'm near some water. So give
Okay.
me, some hot springs, give me a river, give me a lake near it, summer camping with some water.
Yeah.
Can't beat it.
Some people are like impressed with people that snow camp. I'm way more impressed with people that camp in Utah this summer. Like that's way I get sick
I-
thinking about it.
I tell you what, though, the grip on the rocks in Moab when it's 107 degrees out is amazing.
Ugh. I felt sorry for my axles. All right, Simone, let's talk about you a little bit more. How did you get started in off-roading?
So I'm from Southern Utah. Off-roading is just, you're born into it. I mean, you kind of don't have a choice, especially, my family, so many of these off-roading routes that people come from all over the world to come and experience, a lot of them, the majority were built by miners back in the day that stake a mining claim. And back then you could just go and build a road. So like lots of these routes around Moab that people know and love, those were like my grandpa's building those, honestly. And so I grew up, you're off-roading to go check on a mining claim. You're off-roading to, my dad's a rancher too. So it's just what I did every day of my life. I just didn't know any different. I didn't realize that people, like, that's what they did for their vacations, because it was truly just part of my everyday life. My family would experience Moab before Moab was Moab like it is today. And so it's just born into my blood, I guess. I had no option, which I'm grateful for. And then, because I grew up just south of Moab. Now I live a little bit west of Moab, but my husband, he's a motorcycle rider. So now I've gotten into that. We just do a little bit of everything now. And where I'm in Southern Utah, you just can't escape it.
What's the first vehicle you took off-road?
A Suzuki Samurai.
Yeah, right on.
Nice.
I want one again. That was a lot of fun. That was my first car.
You can get one. They just cost more than they did new in 1989.
I know, isn't it insane? Like, it's basically a four-wheeler, and they're hard to find.
They are technically cheaper than side-by-sides and a little bit smaller than the most modern side-by-sides now, it seems like. Maybe
a lot smaller. Some of them are way bigger now, man. Yeah, no, that Suzuki Samurai, they're a little bit sketchy going around some turns because they're so top heavy. But yeah, Suzuki Samurai, that was the first off-roading vehicle. Good times.
Neat.
What's been your favorite rig to hit the trails in?
Oh, I guess it's changed throughout my life. I'd say now, though, I have a family, and so going camping with my kids, we'll just take a truck camping, do tent camping, pull a trailer. I do like, with my kids now, going off in a side-by-side. I know some people aren't fans of side-by-sides.
Canceled. Canceled for driving a side-by-side and giving away sweet camp spots.
I know, I'm going to get canceled, like I said. Internet's going to come after me. I'm controversial. But yeah, I guess it just depends. Like I said, we ride motorcycles too. So I personally ride a TTR 230. So I like going out on that too. Just depends on the time of year. Changes.
Those TTRs, don't those have like a bigger tire or something like that on them?
No, they're pretty
TTR
small.
is?
Which is
Are they?
Yeah.
They
They're
have
a good starter bike too.
They had a fatter tire, not.
that's what I mean, a fatter
Yeah.
tire.
They're like a
Yeah.
fat tire bike. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, other than being a side-by-side rider, what is your most embarrassing moment on trail?
Sorry, don't hold it against me. It's for my kids. So I was actually with BRC, and we were in the San Rafael Swell. So, just west of Moab and those areas. And we were doing trail inventory for one of our Lost Trails guidebook. And we had trailered in, and my son, who was 2 at the time, I believe, he locked the keys in the truck, and I was there with our executive director, Ben, and we had to break a window with a rock. We're out in the middle of nowhere. It's not like there's service or anything. So we had to, I had just started working for BRC too. So it was a real good blonde moment of getting the keys locked in. That was fun driving home with the window.
Which window did you break?
Just the side window.
So I've had a theory. Now I could be wrong, but I say it's always cheaper to replace a windshield. It's like $103 to get
It is. And had I thought about that, I would have broken the different windshield.
Say, side windows, everybody breaks usually a side or back window. They're like $900. A little weird driving 300-400 miles home with no windshield, but you can actually just take a Sawzall and cut a hole in a windshield. It's really fun.
We just saw that on social media recently. Someone used like an angle grinder and they cut a rectangle right above the dash so they could reach in and unlock the rig. So they still had the full windshield except for a small rectangle that they could reach through with their arm.
People need to pack that in their rigs, is what you're saying, if they lock their keys in now. It's like
keep an angle grinder with you.
Medical kit.
We used to be a volunteer firefighter, and you could literally take they had a Sawzall blade that was just like on a T handle. It wasn't on a Sawzall. And you just take the axe and poke a hole in it, and you can just take that Sawzall blade and you can cut out a whole windshield in about 30 seconds. It's crazy how you can just go through a front windshield like that.
Oh, without having the whole Sawzall. That's good to know. I'll pack that now.
I mean, obviously, pack a set of goggles with it, so when you're driving home, there's broken glass flying everywhere.
A mask might be advisable too, because when a bug hits your face at 60 miles an hour, it kind of hurts.
I guess at that point, I should just plan on packing an extra set of keys. I mean,
that's probably better. An extra set of keys.
Plus, maybe.
Do you have a biggest win on the trail?
Probably now seeing my kids, get out and do off-roading. They'll just seeing them ride on like little PW50s and seeing them wreck and get back on. I mean, that's probably the biggest win now, is just watching, your own kids get into it and start learning to love the outdoors and going camping with them and passing that on to the next generation, so that hopefully we get more people who are interested and we don't lose more access to our trails.
It doesn't make you angry watching them on their cool little motorcycles, knowing that your dad could have bought you one for like $300, 20 something years ago, and you could have been like that.
And I was raised like, you don't ride motorcycles. Like, you go off in like bigger rigs. Like, you don't, motorcycles are dangerous. And so it's a whole new world to me now.
Do you have a favorite place to go wheeling at?
Yeah, I like the dunes. So there's the coral pink sand dunes in southern Utah near Kanab. Camping, riding those, I love those. So anything with dunes, I'm a sucker for.
My kids have fallen in love with the dunes. I was talking about going somewhere camping this summer with just my youngest, and he's like, is there sand, Dad? And I'm like, no. And he's like, okay, then I don't want to go. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's fun if you can get like dunes and water. Sand Hollow in southern Utah is nice for that, because you get a little bit of everything there. So that's what I'm a sucker for.
Oregon has some pretty nice dunes, so every time I go, like, what are they, whites? The dunes that are just kind of east of Moab, what are they called? Can't remember. They're out there towards Green River. There's some dunes.
Oh, like Whitewash?
Whitewash, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love Whitewash. 4 acres of dudes here. Why do you even have this on the map?
It's only 4 acres.
I don't know. It's not very big though.
They're not like massive dunes. No.
Yeah. If you're from a place that has massive dunes, it feels like weird.
Like they're just hills of sand. Yeah. It's like a sand.
Well, it's just, yeah. Are there any places that you want to go that you haven't gone to yet?
Yeah. So I haven't been to like the St. Anthony Dunes or Glamis. So I'd like to hit both of those at some point. Idaho in general, I haven't spent a ton of time up in Idaho, but the more that I work on projects in Idaho, like the Owyhees and some different areas that we've been involved with BRC, it sounds like I need to spend more time in Idaho.
Is
Did you say the Owyhees?
Yeah.
They go those are in Oregon, so they must extend into Idaho.
Well, they do both. Yeah. Yeah. There's
Okay.
actually legislation to designate wilderness in both states right now. So that's something we're working on to hopefully not get passed so that people keep their access in those states.
There's some beautiful overlanding that you can do in that area, including hot springs. So
Yeah.
it's on my bucket list. I'd love to try to hit it this year, but I should say next in 2024. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but
Well, hopefully some of the places you're wanting to go, they didn't just close through some travel management plans, and hopefully Congress doesn't designate it as wilderness, because then you might not even be able to go to these areas, unfortunately. Yeah. That's what we're up against.
I'll have to identify as a hiker or something. 4-wheel drive hiker. Although Coy and I are talking about some kayak trips as well, so we'll see what we do. Let's talk about the Blue Ribbon Coalition, since we're kind of getting there a little bit. Where does the Blue Ribbon Coalition operate, and what does the Blue Ribbon Coalition do? Boy, that's a mouthful. Should I just say BRC? Will everybody understand?
Easier, right?
Man, that was a tongue twister. Yeah.
Blue Ribbon Coalition is a lot. It's a mouthful. So we are a national nonprofit organization, and we have members in all 50 states. And what we do as an organization is we fight and advocate for continued access on public lands for the public. So the majority of our work is going to happen in the Western United States, just because that's where the majority of public lands are. As you get further east, it's just more private land. So there's not as much that we do in those states. But I mean, we've worked on projects, in West Virginia, in New Hampshire, and Florida. I mean, throughout the entire United States. And so we are a national organization. We started in Idaho. And we've been around since 1987. So it is an organization that's been around for decades, fighting for public land access. And that's our whole mission, is public lands are for us to enjoy, and the continual onslaught of trying to close public lands to the users, it's just unacceptable.
So how was the BRC started?
So, like I said, it started in 87. The founder, his name was Clark Collins, and he lived in Idaho, and he started seeing these proposals to create wilderness, which, for those who don't know, if Congress designates wilderness, then it shuts down an area from, like, you can't have any roads for 3,000 consecutive miles. And so wilderness just closes access to every user. So he started seeing proposals for wilderness and to close access, and he decided that there needed to be a united force of recreation users, and people in Idaho, legislators, elected officials. They basically told him that wilderness was more important than people's right to go out and recreate on public lands. So he knew that there were thousands, if not millions, of people who recreated on public lands, and he needed to organize them so that they could, fight against these closures. So that's how it started. It started in Idaho, and it's grown nationally.
Does wilderness remove like existing roads then too? So like Forest Service roads going to, like, say, a hot spring?
Yeah. So what they will do, so legally, they cannot create wilderness if there are roads within, a certain area. However, what we've seen is wilderness has been designated, and we'll talk about this with Moab, in areas that there are roads, and then they'll just cherry stem the roads in. But then also they'll do these travel plans on, Bureau of Land Management lands or Forest Service lands they'll close those roads so that then later they can be designated as wilderness so that they'll qualify and meet those qualifications.
Sneaky.
It is sneaky.
Because I just thought of this question. It's not on the list. Hopefully, it don't catch you off guard. Blue Ribbon Coalition. If I wasn't into off-roading, how did that name get? Like, what does that mean exactly?
Oh man, so the Blue Ribbon, I know that some people think it has to do just with racing because it's like, oh, you win a blue ribbon.
Yeah,
but it's more than just racing. I know it's like we want to win access to public lands and champion, responsible public land recreation use. There's probably a better answer than that I should have, but that's what I've got for you.
Okay.
I don't think we completely touched on it. You fight for everybody, so not only off-road people, but maybe fishermen and hikers and everybody, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's like, there's a lot of internal like fighting between users, but there really shouldn't be, because at the end of the day, other people using the lands just helps solidify your access. I mean, if off-roaders want to access land and they can also say, okay, those roads are there for mining claim owners, for grazing rights owners, for rock hounders, for, there's so many other users, then it just strengthens their argument to be able to continue to use those lands. And so our main base is off-roaders. However, like, anybody who wants to support us, we're not going to tell them no. But we do get involved. So for example, we have a current lawsuit going on over the expansion of Grand Staircase, Escalante National Monument, and Bears Ears National Monuments, both in southern Utah. And we're challenging the abuse of the antiquities that President Biden used to expand them to be millions of acres of land. And we have a mining claim owner in that. We have private property owners. I mean, so we do use people with other legal standing in our fights. So yeah, our main focus is recreation users, but they all overlap a little bit.
I just had this thought, Ben. If we get some of your kids out on the hiking trails and you give them those fancy shovels, they'll essentially dig booby traps and cripple a bunch of the hikers, which will probably turn them into either a motorized recreation enthusiast, which we could possibly, your children could win this fight if we just give them shovels.
I don't think everyone is unlucky as I am when it comes to finding those booby traps, though.
We could try.
We definitely could.
That's worth a try.
Yeah, I for one, this podcaster believes that they could do it. Simone, are there any other examples of fights that Blue Ribbon Coalition has won, just for listeners kind of understand more what you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, historically, we've had, a great history of winning. The snowmobiles in Yellowstone, we took that case all the way to the Supreme Court and won. And so that's why guided snowmobiles are still allowed in Yellowstone National Park. Personal watercrafts on Lake Powell, that was another huge win that we've had decades ago. But I mean, even just recently, the system is so set up, it's rigged against off-roaders, because off-roaders, we're like the only users on public land that don't have any legal rights. Grazers, they've got the Taylor Grazing Act. Miners, they've got the Mining Act. I mean, they've got these legal rights that help protect their access. There's currently no legislation that protects off-roaders' right to access these public lands. And so that's why I said it's rigged against us, basically. But just the fact that we're challenging the Moab decision, and we've got so many people rallying behind us, and we have individuals on the court case with us. I mean, that's a win in itself that Sue is not just ramming this through the BLM. In Idaho, we just recently saw 2 decisions in the Owyhee area of Idaho. So it's the Canyonlands East and the Canyonlands West travel management plans. When these federal agencies undergo travel management planning, where they basically go through and decide which routes should stay open and which routes should stay closed, they have to go through what's called NEPA, so the National Environmental Policy Act, and they have to give you a range of alternatives, like various options of closures and what they're keeping open. And rarely, if ever, do they choose the recreation alternative that keeps the most routes open. And in southern Idaho, just barely, we saw them choose the recreation alternative. So the fact that recreation users are starting to mobilize and make their voice heard, I mean, they're being listened to, and that's a huge win in itself, because before they would have chosen the conservation alternative that would close, 50% of the routes. So we are gaining momentum rather than just getting our butts kicked like we have been for, decades.
How often have you guys used the American Disabilities Association as part of that fight, out of curiosity? I know tons of guys that can't go out and hike because of bad knees and their service to this country, and they choose to go off-roading, and that's their way to the outdoors. And personally, it's kind of mine too, because I'm a little too fat to go hiking.
So we include it in every single comment that I submit to these federal agencies on these plans. I include something about ADA and Americans with disabilities. In fact, President Biden, one of his first executive orders talked about not marginalizing these underserved populations, including those with disabilities, to access public lands. And so we include it in everything. The response, so the federal agencies, they have to respond to every comment that's provided during these planning processes. And their response is typically, well, because we're closing it to everybody, we're not discriminating against those with disabilities, which, I mean, it's such a crap answer. It's
a huge crap answer, because how are they gonna get to those places that are now hikers only?
Exactly. So the next step on that is getting legislation passed that actually protects those rights. Like, Congress needs to step up and actually pass a bill that protects those rights. So that's the next step, because as of right now, we don't get a lot of traction with just including that in our comments. So hopefully we could get some legislation passed at some point that protects those rights for those with disabilities.
That one would be a tough one for me in court, because just when I'm on the hiking trail and there's some veteran with clearly missing a leg and he just hikes past me 4 times faster, my sweat's pouring off me. This guy with one leg's just blowing me out of the water. It's like he's way better than me. It's tough.
I mean, that's something that we're seeing too with like e-bikes. I mean, e-bikes is a fairly new technology. It's a fairly new user group, and it's usually just, people who physically can't ride a mountain bike anymore. And so they're trying to close e-bikes on like mountain bike trails. And it's usually people that are physically limited, but the agencies just don't know how to handle that right now. It's so new. And so that's something else that we're looking at.
Well, one of the main reasons we had you guys on, we want to know about this whole Moab situation. This the off-road community just got blindsided by this. This feels like a month and a half ago, and we want to know firsthand what's going on. Can you give us a synopsis of what took place, what's happening, and what we're doing about it?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, the end of September, the BLM issued their decision on the travel management plan that's happening in the Labyrinth Rooms, Gemini Bridges travel management plan. And in that, they basically chose the worst alternative that closes over 300 miles of routes. And I mean, very well-known routes. I can start listing some of them. Tell me when you want me to stop, because there's so many. You've got Dead Cow Loop, you've got the Tubes, 10-mile Rim, 10-mile Canyon, 10-mile Point, Rock Canyon Loop, Hajo Arch, Hajo Rim, Cliffhanger Arch, Hell Roaring Canyon, Dead Man Point Overlook. I mean, that's just a small, I could go on. Like I said, there's so many closures. I don't think I even said like Mashed Potatoes, Mineral Canyon. There's lots of very well-known routes that are being closed through this process. So BRC, we appealed the decision and filed a motion to stay. And we've got awesome representation with Texas Public Policy. So I said, Moab in itself is a huge win. The fact that we're fighting this with such incredible legal counsel too. And the community has just really shown up to support the legal challenge in this. As of right now, the routes are technically open until the judge issues a decision on the stay. The judge could issue a decision anytime, but he has to issue a decision by the 12th. We're not really sure what the decision is going to be, but we will continue to fight it, as far as we need to, depending on what decision we get. If we're not granted the motion to stay, we'll just keep fighting it through the courts, trying to get a decision and an outcome that we like. So that's where we're at currently with Moab. I can give you like the background going way far back if you want to hear kind of the timeline. There's a lot of fighting amongst users, a lot of claims about what's the cause of the closures. And we can get into that if you guys want to.
That's Coy's next question.
Yeah. Is there any one category of wheeler or off-roader to blame for these closures? And why did you say side-by-sides?
Okay. So I'm going to back way up. In 1989, the Red Rock Wilderness Act was first introduced. And this act designates basically all of southern Utah as wilderness. It would get rid of all these routes. But it's never been passed. That started in 89, but that's when we first saw this movement start, that they wanted to designate wilderness. 89, side-by-sides weren't around, right? And then in 2008, the BLM started the resource management plan for this area. So again, 2008, side-by-sides weren't really a user group then either. And SUA, Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, they're pushing the Red Rock Wilderness Act through these years. They're pushing these closures through this resource management plan. So after the resource management plan, then they do the travel management plan. Well, the BLM actually issued a good decision with the travel management plan originally. It kept routes open. And this was in 2017 when they made this decision. And so SUA, they sued over the decision, and they entered into a settlement with the Bureau of Land Management. And the settlement basically said that the BLM had to redo this travel management plan. So looking at this travel management plan and trying to close these routes, it's not a recent thing. SUA and these extreme environmental groups, they have been pushing this since 1989. They want these routes closed. Because Southern Utah in general, there's so many facets to Southern Utah, but most of these routes that are there, they were made by uranium miners. Like I said, so there's uranium in the area, there's helium in the area, there's coal in Southern Utah. It's a very resource rich area. So this has been in a fight for decades, long before side-by-sides were even a thing. And so when people say, oh, it's because of the side-by-sides, oh, we did this to ourselves, it's because of the users. No. SUA has been pushing this long before. And it's so much bigger than just off-roading. This is about being dependent on, or not being independent, because Southern Utah alone is, like I said, it's really resource rich. And environmental groups, these extreme groups, they don't like that. And they've wanted these roads closed for decades from when the roads were first built by longtime miners. So that's where it all started. It didn't start because of side-by-side users. And in fact, lots of times when I see people say, oh, it's because they're trashing the routes, I've spent lots of time in this area, especially on some of these lesser known routes that are being closed. And I haven't seen any trash. In fact, most of the time I don't even see any other users. The majority of these routes aren't even big side-by-side routes or even like off-roading routes. They're mainly overlanding routes. That's the main user group who really got screwed in this decision. It's the overlanders primarily because there's lots of dispersed camping sites. And then next is probably the single track, Dead Cow Loop, the tubes. Those are probably some of the most sought out single track routes in Utah and in the West, honestly. So I don't know if that helps ease your side-by-side pain or not.
That they might not have started it, but let's pretend that they're ending it. That way I still am a little right. But I just had
let's hope that no one's ending it, right? I mean, we're going to appeal this decision, and
I just had a thought that if this works, it may actually win the fight, and it could be just an easy slam dunk. So I heard that there was some Star Wars scene filmed in Tusher Tunnel, which is a tunnel in Utah there, kind of off of 3D, I believe, which I heard 3D was on the closure list. So if Tusher Tunnel is on the closure list, and we get the word out to all the Star Wars fans that there's an actual physical location that they can go see that's being closed, it will be like the wrath of the nerds will come down on SUA. Just think about mobilizing the Star Wars base.
And that's what we've got to do. We've got to mobilize all these users that don't realize that, it's kind of their own people that are getting them to close it. I mean, like I said, so many of these overlanders, I've been out there and, you see the Subaru with a SUA sticker and in their window, and they don't realize, hey, you're not going to be able to come camp here anymore. I mean, SUA is kind of screwing over their own user base. And so it's really about mobilizing everybody to see that everyone's being hurt from this. And another thing that we're doing as BRC is we actually have gotten legislation introduced both in the House and the Senate that will defund the planning and the implementation. So the BLM won't be able to use any resources to actually implement these closures. So if that could get passed, that would be a huge win. We'll see if it can, but that's something people can do is contact their legislator.
It's surprising how many of those people that are into off-roading support these what feel like a off-roading pro. I think it's Ducks Unlimited gets a bunch of closures, and lots of off-roaders are huge into Ducks Unlimited. They're fighting against you.
Yeah, people have no idea. They don't realize that these groups that they're supporting, they're not helping them protect their access to continue to do what they love and their hobbies.
So as I prepare my smear campaign against SUA, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about who they are?
Yeah, so SUA, Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, and they are an extreme environmental group that has been around for decades that want wilderness. Like I said, wilderness, there's no roads, there's no access. They don't want humans in these areas. They think people are the problem. So they introduce legislation, they, manipulate these travel plans, they sue over any decision that the BLM or the Forest Service does. I mean, they're just a huge pain in my side, is what they are.
I also like the way they can basically, it's super political the way they're just oh, we just want a more balanced approach to use of these lands. It's balanced. You're closing the whole thing to everyone but hikers. Where's the balance? But they say that, but then they don't have to say how in the world that could be considered a balanced approach. That angers me deep down.
They're super hypocritical. I mean, we FOIA a lot of what they do, and so we can see, their information. I mean, not their information, but what they're advocating for. And with these routes that they're closing, I mean, they'll claim that, not very many people visit them, that it's not going to hurt the economy of Moab at all. But then they also claim that it's overuse and it's destroying, habitat and wildlife. And we're like, well, what is it? Is it overuse or is it not being used and it's not going to hurt the economy? You can't have it both ways. And so their justifications are just very hypocritical.
Yeah. And then I think the last thing I seen they said was, there's still 800 miles of trails in Moab. Like, it's not like it's that much. Like, it's like, dude, you're trying to close 30%. And this is like the number one wheeling destination in the world. And you want to just take 30% by. Like, the hubris that comes from SUA is just so insane. And also, go ahead.
I mean, so much of their user base are these overlanders, and Moab's like the top spot in the nation to go and camp at. And it's getting harder and harder to find a campsite there. And people are frustrated about it. And it's SUA that's doing it to them. I mean, it's their own organization that they love and they donate money to. And people don't even realize that it is their own people that is making it so that they can't go and be on public lands, that they cannot go and camp and they cannot go and enjoy nature, because SUA thinks humans are the problem. They are the problem. No matter what they do, they should not be on these lands.
Not cool.
I would also point out that Moab is already a Superfund site. So technically, like, the environment's screwed there anyways. So just like, why fight for it? Let's run that by SUA. And leading off that, how much horse poo should we mail to SUA? Like, is that like a hashtag or a Twitter or some kind of dookie mailing campaign that we could do to help our cause?
I mean, I don't think SUA's not going to be swayed by us whatsoever. And SUA,
I get you can't say yes, but like, they
don't care what we do. They really don't.
Want us to mail them.
They are funded by a Swiss billionaire. They don't care. But if we're gonna rally people, what's beneficial is just educating, like I said, these people that they might not be huge off-roaders and they might not, care too much about it. But when they hear, hey, you can't just go camp at a spot, or, oh, you can't go and overlook the river and just see this pretty spot, and it's SUA that's doing it. I mean, once you start putting that out there and people see who the problem really is, that lots of times it's not even these agencies. I mean, a lot of the local, Bureau of Land Management employees or Forest Service employees, they want to actually do their jobs and manage the land, but they're being sued every step of the way by SUA. And so if people want to make an impact and really take it to SUA, there's a way to do it, but it's through submitting just as many comments that they do in support of keeping the routes open. And what's special about BRC, what gives us our legal standing, it's the individual members. If we were just a well-funded big organization and we weren't connected to these users that are on the trails and have on the ground information, we wouldn't have strong legal standing to actually go and sue over the cases that we're currently suing over. And so that's the way to take it to SUA, is go out, enjoy these areas, and then make sure that you're being involved, that you're submitting comments so that then you have legal standing and we can use your legal standing to sue what these decisions that SUA has, manipulated.
How much of this falls back on the BLM for blame, since they're closing? Is there a big chunk of them at fault as much as SUA?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to, like I said, there's lots of times that you see the agencies that they really do want to, they're mandated for multiple use and they want to actually do that. They want to manage the lands. They understand that the lands are funded by our tax dollars and they want to do that. But this decision is so much higher than them. This is a decision coming straight from Tracy Stone Manning and the, Secretary of Interior, the higher ups in the BLM. And so lots of times locally, there's their hands are tied. There's not much that they can do. They can't change the decision. However, what we're seeing in the Moab plan, the justifications that the BLM gave us to close these routes, like for example, they would say, this route is redundant to, D0016, for example. But then that same route that they're saying it's redundant to is also being closed. And so, they're pretty sloppy with their justifications, and that does fall on the BLM. Their justifications don't add up. They were sloppy with their justifications, with their science, saying that it's not going to affect, because they have to analyze all of the effects of the decision that they make. So they even have to analyze the economic effects. And for them to claim that there's not going to be an economic loss to Moab, to Green River, but yet claim that there's a huge environmental impact, they don't add up. The math isn't mathing. And so that does fall on the BLM.
What can our listeners do to help out with this fight? I know you mentioned going out there recreating right into your centers. Is there anything else?
Yeah. So for Moab specifically, contact your legislator. Let them know you want them to support the Historic Roadways Protection Act. That was introduced by Senator Lee in Utah in the Senate, and Representative John Curtis from Utah on the House side. So if we can get this legislation passed, that would be a huge win. Become a member of BRC. We'll keep you updated. You'll get our newsletters. So you'll see other projects that are happening. Like I said, we have issues going on, not just in Moab or in Utah, but in so many states, all of the states in the Western United States. Multiple issues going on. And we need people who know those areas to actually comment and participate in the NEPA, in the public comment process. That's where we get our legal standing. BRC wouldn't be what we are if it wasn't for the individual members being on the ground and being passionate about what they do and submitting comments. So just in general, keep going out and exploring. And then when your area is up for some type of project, some type of proposal, make sure you're engaged on it.
All right, I got to hit on this. The Lost Trails of Moab book. I'm super interested in that. I really want one. Tell us a little about this.
Yeah, so we actually have 2 Lost Trails guidebook. This is something else that people can do to support what we're doing, is they can donate and get a Lost Trails guidebook. The first trails, they're in San Rafael Swell, so near Moab, but they're routes that we know our SUA would like to see closed. Volume 2, we actually released it right before the plan for Moab to close other routes was released, and it's got all the Moab routes. These are trails that maybe aren't as well known that SUA would like to close. These environmental groups want to see closed, and they're awesome sites. So we give you coordinates, we tell you about them. Lots of times there's like historical use, and you can get off the beaten trail. You can see some areas that other people haven't. We've got trails in there. In Arizona too, other parts of Utah, hoping to release, more volumes, different states. So Lost Trails Guidebook is a great way that you can support BRC, but then also get access to awesome trails and coordinates, dispersed campsites. We even have some stuff for some snowmobiling areas too, for snowmobilers out there.
And they're $25.
Yeah, so if you donate, then we will send you. You've got to use the exact link, I believe. We've got like different links to donate, but if you donate $25, then we'll send you a Lost Trails guidebook as a thank you. And also, if you happen to be in Moab, most of the like rental companies in Moab have them in their shops that you can buy there too.
And that is the first edition still, like, that's still being printed for sale, or is it?
Yep. We
Oh, yeah,
have the
I gotta
first
get that.
edition. We still have some copies of that as well.
Very nice.
That is really cool. Well, our last question here is where can our listeners find you? What social medias are the BRC located on?
So we are on Instagram, TikTok. We're just Blue Ribbon Coalition on both of those. Facebook, we're Blue Ribbon Coalition. Our website is sharetrails.org. So not Blue Ribbon Coalition, it's sharetrails.org, but the BRC website will come up. But you can also just Google Blue Ribbon Coalition and our stuff comes right up. We are on YouTube. We're not just Blue Ribbon Coalition. We are BRC TV is what we are on YouTube. So yeah, you can find us on basically all social media platforms. We'll keep people updated on big projects. We're keeping people updated on Moab because we're going to start seeing decisions come out from the judge soon. So there'll be more updates on Moab soon that will be a big deal, and it'll be fun to stay on the loop or stay in the loop.
I always enjoy the TikTok stuff. It's my thing now.
Follow us.
I do actually.
Nice.
I've started. If our listeners might have noticed, I've been doing shorts, and I take little clips from the show, and they end up on TikTok. So it's always fun to see what everybody else is doing, and I do follow you guys.
TikTok's a fun mix. I mean, it's just a big mixed bag of you never know what you're gonna get. I mean, it's fun because your videos can reach a lot of people without them actually having to follow you. So you never know what you're gonna get on TikTok, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I would just urge people to donate to Blue Ribbon Coalition if you're into off-roading. Like, everybody has to support their hobby somehow. You don't even need. If we could get every overlander out there to give them $1, they could just crush all this stuff. It were at least
because I mean,
really
outdoor recreation, it's an $821 billion a year industry. I mean, we're a huge industry, but we don't act like it quite yet. Like, we're not influencing legislation as much as we could be. I mean, we're doing everything that we can, getting legislation introduced and whatnot. But I mean, we could be a real powerhouse and just crushing SUA if we acted as big as we really are.
It's hard to explain to people that aren't around some. Like in Oregon, we have like snowmobiling clubs, and they straight up, they almost seem like a government organization. They're like so well and into politics. They get grants, get their own like $500,000 snowcats from the government to access and maintain. It's like, it's insane. They can only do stuff 6 months of the year. And if you're down the highway, there's just, at least in this part of the world, there's overland rigs just up and down every road. You can't go 30 seconds without seeing a rooftop tent. You see a snowmobile never. And they're so well representative and so well organized. I just
They are. The snowmobile community is very well organized. I would say of all the user groups that we work with, the snowmobilers, they've got things put together pretty well. I will say
they're very good at what they do.
They
All right,
are.
guys. Next week we are doing an episode on reversible versus irreversible modifications. So tune in for that. You can watch Ben take a hole saw to the roof of his 4Runner. Sorry, Ben, you have to do it now.
TikTok has got to go on the show. Sorry, we need
I'm not doing it for the gram or the TikTok video.
It would go viral.
Probably would. Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for listening to us. Coy, stop hand gesturing. I'm trying to talk right now.
No.
Coy's video is just lagging really bad on this episode. Thank you everyone who listens to us weekly and those of us who watch us live. We appreciate you guys. We really do. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the questions and the comments. We love what you guys have to share. Also, make sure that you're sharing the show out to your friends and your family. I'm sure you guys talked about us around the Thanksgiving dinner table when you were talking about what you were thankful for. We really do appreciate you guys. Thanks for helping us grow our show, and God bless America.
Don't forget to visit Patriot Patch and join the Patch of the Month Club. Check out our Gaia affiliate link for up to 40% off. Also, don't forget to head over to Warren Colby Valve and 4 Patriots to see all of their great products. We are a proud part of the Firearms Radio Network. Got a question or comment? Send it to us through our Linktree account or by searching for Off-Road Podcast. Also, you can listen to us live at overlandradio.com Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. When off-road, please remember to have fun, tread lightly, and be safe and courteous. Thanks for listening.
Why does South Utah Wilderness Association sound like a villain on Dora the Explorer?
Because
Sue us, stop suing.
they are a villain. That's what they are. No, they really are like pretty evil, honestly.